I'm in Peru traveling down one of the most remote stretches of the Amazon. My destination is the historic city of Iquitos, which grew incredibly rich a century ago during the Amazon's rubber boom. Today, it's the biggest city in the world that you can't drive to, marooned in the middle of the jungle. Getting there isn't easy, but it's definitely going to be a great adventure. My journey starts from Yurimaguas, at the end of Peru's road network. Traveling downriver for days through the jungle, I finally arrive in the remote city of Iquitos before returning upriver to the spectacular Pacaya Samiria National Reserve to search for rare wildlife. Situated on the edge of the Amazon rainforest, Yurimaguas is a busy frontier town with a population of around 50,000 people. There's plenty of noisy traffic here, but happily I won't be seeing any more of that for a while. Gracias. Okay, in terms of getting to Iquitos, this is the end of the road. It's boats from here on out. 250 miles downriver. If all goes well, it should take about 2 days. The boats from here to Iquitos don't usually depart according to a regular schedule. They just leave when they're fully loaded with passengers and cargo, which makes planning a trip in advance tough, although I've been given a useful tip. Okay, you could hang around here for days waiting for a boat to leave, but not if you're smart. You get on the vegetable boat. That's the one I'm going for. All right, this says it's leaving at 5:30, which I believe because look at this. All eggs. These are never gonna last on deck because let me tell you, it is hot here. It's about 98 degrees, 98% humidity. We're gonna move fast. So much for the vegetable boat always leaving punctually. Hour after hour, well into the night, more and more vegetables are loaded on board. For the sake of the people in Iquitos who'll be eating them, let's hope they stay fresh despite the delay. Oh, well, it's dark and hot. My bag's still here, so that's good. And I think I'm gonna head back to the deck. All right, this is it. It is definitely cooler out here, but lights are on, kids are playing, the vegetables are still being loaded. I'm not feeling totally optimistic about a good night's sleep, but it's better than the hot box. We'll give it a try. I only wish I brought some earplugs. It's been an interesting night. My takeaway from the night is there's a particular skill set to sleeping on a hammock on a boat deck in the Amazon. I haven't quite acquired that skill set yet, but we got through it. And here we go, hopefully today sometime. I'd like to get moving. The boat should have left well over 12 hours ago, but at least prospects seem good for an imminent departure. From the look of it, no more vegetables are being loaded on board. Finally, the boat really is ready to leave. All right, the moment of truth. They're pulling back the little gangplank. There we go. We're finally taken off. Say goodbye to land. 2.5 days, we'll make it to the city of Iquitos, if all goes well.
Out of the more than 200 people making the trip to Iquitos aboard our boat, there are a handful of foreign travelers, but the vast majority of passengers are local Peruvians. At just $25 in a hammock for the 2.5-day journey, it's a cheap way to travel, especially when you consider that 3 meals a day are included in the price.
Captain jumped in his little boat, went out to a village, came back with that, the biggest catfish I've ever seen. And now the chef's preparing it. It'll serve dozens, maybe 100 people for dinner. Very nice. Not all of the critters on this vessel are for eating. These are pets. They seem hungry because they're trying to eat my fingers. Very sweet, huh? There you go.
Outside on deck, the view remains unchanging hour after hour, making it easy to forget that we're making any progress at all. And forward progress really is slow. Due to the extremely flat landscape, the river meanders in big loops back and forth through the Amazon jungle. Initially, we're actually traveling down tributaries of the main Amazon River. To start with, we're traveling down the Huallaga River before joining a bigger tributary, the Marañón. Finally, for the last part of our journey, we'll be on the Amazon itself. Although it's 250 miles in a straight line from Yurimaguas to Iquitos, the distance we're actually traveling is more like 500 miles due to all the river's twists and turns. The Huallaga River we're on today, although wide, isn't nearly as easy to navigate as it looks. Its meandering route creates frequent shifts of the main navigable channel. And in some places, it's very shallow with treacherous sandbanks, as a fellow passenger explains to me. Now, what are they doing out there?
Up there, they are measuring the depth of the river because it's quite low there. That's why they're using the long stick to be checking the deepest part where the ship can be navigating downriver.
This is a heavily laden boat right now, so if we go over a shallow, we just basically run aground?
Yes, sometimes not often, but sometimes when these kind of boats can stack on the sandbar, it can stay, depending, for 1 month.
A month?
Yes, or 2 months, until the water can start coming up.
That's a new season, isn't it?
It's a new season, yes.
Okay, that's not an option. What's our second option?
The second option, it is we can take a lot of these cargoes out, and so the ship can float up and move. The other way how typically we do here is wait for other ferry boats that can be coming up or going down river that they can help us to pull the boat to the deepest part.
So this really happens sometimes?
Yeah, this really happens sometimes. We have to be prepared for surprises and adventure on the Amazon.
Adventure.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Just be prepared.
I'm trying really hard not to swing, but I keep banging into my neighbors here. Nobody seems to mind, though. We'll see how it goes. Although most of the cargo and most passengers on our boat are staying on board to Iquitos,
The boat does make quite a few stops at villages en route for a few people to get on and off, and for small amounts of cargo to be offloaded or brought on. The villagers also take the opportunity to sell us some of their local delicacies.
What do you have there? Ooh. Can I have one? Un sol? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. We've got some grubs from a village girl. She brought them on board. Breakfast? They're from palm trees, and they're sort of big, fat, formerly squiggly grubs that have been cooked in palm oil. I might not have another, but it's good to try one.
It's only a short stop, but while we wait on board for cargo to be loaded or offloaded, in this case plantains coming on and rice being taken off, we've got time to spot some of the Amazon's unique wildlife, river dolphins.
Oh, there's a huge one right there. We've stopped, see those dolphins? We've stopped at a confluence of rivers, and there's slower moving water, so that's why the dolphins hang out here, because there's fish. Oh, look at them. See them surfacing right there? It's so strange that there's dolphins in a river, isn't it? Whoa.
Here in the Peruvian Amazon, there are 2 different species of dolphins. Most of the river dolphins here are the more commonly seen gray ones, but we also get a couple of tantalizing glimpses of the unique and rarely seen pink river dolphin, which is found only here in the Amazon.
Oh, there's a pink one. Out of nowhere, a pink one. Right there.
As we travel downriver, most of the time we're surrounded by jungle, but throughout the day we continue to pass a number of remote villages. Usually we carry on by, only stopping at the larger villages, where there's enough cargo to be taken on and off our boat so as to make stopping worthwhile.
This boat is actually flagging us down mid-river, telling us they want to come on board. The thing is, with the smaller villages, they have to board while we're moving. We don't stop for them. They've got empty barrels, and they want to put them on board, send them to Iquitos, where they'll get filled with fuel or sugarcane rum or something, and eventually they'll come back to this local village. All right, that was a tricky landing. It's a real art form to come on board, do this exchange, all without stopping. We are moving, moving, moving.
The languid pace of our boat, the endless, unchanging view, and the heavy, humid heat makes me and seemingly most other passengers on the boat really dozy. I sleep through the heat of the day for hours and wake up only just in time for dinner.
That's where dinner is? Okay. What's for dinner? Oh, we've got some rice. There's a lone fried egg. I think that might be mine. I'm a little bit late for dinner. Looks like the chicken soup is all gone. This man has to cook for 300 people sometimes in this small kitchen, so this is impressive. Very nice. Gracias. Can't believe this spot isn't taken. You can have dinner anywhere you want on this boat, but this is the place for me.
Having slept through much of the day, I'm now wide awake and looking for some evening entertainment. At first, things don't look promising, but then I'm in luck.
Yeah, you want to show me? Okay.
At the back of the boat, hidden behind some vegetable boxes, I find the captain and crew playing poker.
A little blackjack, yeah? 21? Okay, all right. Who's stealing? All right, this is not how they do it in Vegas, people. Cut the deck, Captain, cut the deck. All right, am I dealing?
This version of the game seems to be played 1 against 1, without face cards. And from what I understand, the rules are that you win if your cards add up closest to the maximum, 21.
Okay. 14. All right. You know, I didn't expect you guys to be so easy. Ante up, everybody.
Yeah. $2.
I'm feeling lucky. This is great, you guys. Oh, he played $5, huh? He's playing $5. I'll match your 5, and I will raise you 5. I think he's bluffing. Okay. 5, 14. Read it and weep. Okay, let's go. To say, I always sleep better with a little fresh cash in my pocket. Sleep like a baby tonight.
First thing on what should be our final morning of the journey, we wake up to something that I hadn't expected at all: dense fog.
We must go in slowly, otherwise we maybe can crash with sandbank, you know. Right. So that's the reason we just leave the boat move by the current. Yeah. That's the experience of the boat driver. Yeah.
So we already left a day late, and now this fog, it probably means significant delays?
A couple hours at least, yeah, or more maybe. If the weather continues, it could be another day.
Another day. So this is like the definition of you have to go with the flow, right?
Yes.
It's a whole philosophy around this trip. We've come into shore again. They're not comfortable being in the middle of the river.
Because if you go in the middle, it's so foggy, so you can be lost sometimes.
Lost?
Yeah, lost. Yeah.
Not lost. I mean, can't you just go downriver?
Sometimes when you are not looking the bank, you cannot see the direction.
Yeah.
So maybe you think that it's maybe on the left, you can go on the left, but sometimes doing a circle. Maybe you can be going upstream again.
Oh, this is getting more complicated. So it's better we just stay close to shore.
Close to shore, not so faster, so slowly. Yeah.
No drama.
No drama, yeah.
Okay.
We stay becalmed in the fog for a couple of hours or so, but then the heat of the day gradually kicks in and the sun burns it off. Luckily, we haven't been delayed too long and should still be able to reach Iquitos tonight. Before we get there, however, our long journey downriver has finally reached a pivotal moment.
In this river that we are leaving behind, that is the Marañón River. That river that you can see, that is the Ucayali River. We are exactly here in the confluence of the two rivers that forms the mighty Amazon.
So this is it. This is the spot.
This is it.
This is where it begins officially.
Yes.
How far to the Atlantic?
About 2,000 miles to the Atlantic Ocean.
Unbelievable. It's a huge amount of water. I read somewhere that if you added up the next 8 biggest rivers in the world, all of the water in those rivers, it wouldn't equal the amount of water in the Amazon.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
It's astonishing.
The main reason for the extraordinary amount of water in the Amazon is, of course, rain.
The rainy season has just begun here. This storm behind me may or may not catch up with us, but if it does, look out, because when it rains here, it pours.
As it turns out, we escaped the rain for now. With just a few hours to go before we get to Iquitos, I used the time to get up to speed with the city's remarkable history just over a century ago, when it was at the center of the Amazon's rubber boom. It's an amazing story. A few rubber barons, it seems, became incredibly rich selling natural rubber to the world. As the best quality rubber could only be obtained from trees growing in the Amazon, the region's rubber came to be worth a fortune once bicycles, motorcycles, and cars were invented, all running on millions of rubber tires. How ironic that today Iquitos is the biggest city in the world that you can't even drive to.
After so much time on the river, I'm excited to almost be in Iquitos. Another hour or so and we'll be docking. And I want to figure out more about the rubber boom history here, because after all, that's why such a huge city exists in the middle of the jungle.
Finally, we see the lights of Iquitos in the distance. Remarkably, despite being so isolated in the jungle, hundreds of miles from the nearest connecting road, the great city we're about to arrive in has a population of around 500,000 people.
We are sliding right in, threading the needle into this port. These guys really know what they're doing. Landfall, Iquitos.
After quietly floating through the remote Amazon jungle for the past 3 days, it's an astonishing contrast to be on the streets of Iquitos, surrounded by crowded, raucous nightlife.
Yo estaba cogiendo ese gallo arriba.
Mané, turista! Todo, todo! Oh, yes! A ver, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, $10.
Dile que tú vas a escoger.
Gracias. Eso es mío, falta de él. Falta de él.
Listen to the sound of that rain. It is pouring out, but that I expect. I am in the middle of the rainforest, but what I didn't expect was what my hotel looks like. I mean, check this out. This is rubber boom era money at its finest. These got these huge high ceilings and chandeliers. And the tiling down here is gorgeous. It's inside and outside, and it was all imported from Europe at great expense way back then. But the real kicker is right here, this bed. As much as I loved my hammock on board, I was pretty happy to see this last night.
With its population of around 500,000, Iquitos today is bigger than ever. But its heyday was undoubtedly during the rubber boom in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Back in the old days, when all the world's motor vehicles so badly needed the Amazon's natural rubber, Iquitos grew hugely wealthy from the rubber trade. And today, all the grandest and most beautiful buildings in Iquitos date back to that time. I'm given a tour of the city's extraordinary rubber boom history by a local American expat, Scott Humfeld.
This is one of the more ornate buildings in Iquitos. It's the Cohen Company. They were exporters and importers. They exported rubber and imported other things from Europe. The building was made with tiles imported from Portugal and Italy.
Yeah, very intricate.
You know, the intricate steel work.
Uh-huh.
And now it's a grocery store.
It's a grocery store,
And
huh?
a good one.
One of the better designed grocery stores around.
Yeah, an elegant grocery store.
Nearby, on the main square, is the city's most unusual rubber boom building, the so-called Iron House. Said to have been designed by Gustave Eiffel in Paris, it was assembled here in 1890 after being shipped piece by piece from Europe.
So you can see how this is indeed iron. And it's no longer a rubber warehouse, which the bottom was. It's a pharmacy where they do sell rubbers. But rubber had an incredible amount of uses, from waterproofing to tires to gaskets, and help allow the industrial revolution to really take off. So it's an incredible, valuable product.
And at the beginning, it was all here, essentially.
It's all here.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why this whole region went.
Yeah, it was a huge boom. A few people made a lot of money. The rubber barons would send their laundry back to Europe to be laundered because the river water is considered dirty here. They would bring over canned foods from Europe because they weren't used to the fish and the other products that are eaten by the local people. So they kept sort of their own version of Europe here rather than adapting to the local conditions.
Maybe not all wise decisions. I mean, an iron
Definitely
house
not.
in this climate,
Yeah,
foolhardy.
very hot.
The most famous of all the rubber barons in Iquitos was Carlos Fitzcarraldo, who was the inspiration for the 1980s movie Fitzcarraldo.
One of the interesting things about Fitzcarraldo was he was looking for an area to tap rubber that hadn't been exploited beforehand, and he knew of an area, but it wasn't accessible by river that he knew of. So what he did was he hauled his ship over a mountain. In the movie, they dragged the entire ship over the mountain. In real life, he took the ship apart. He enlisted a large number of indigenous people, and by enlisted, I mean he had rifles and threatened them with death, and a number of people died in doing that. But he was able to get the ship in pieces over the mountain, and then from there, he found a river route to bring the rubber down to Iquitos, to where it was shipped out to Europe and the United States.
So it was a success.
I don't think the indigenous people would see it that way, but for Fitzcarraldo it was, and he made a fortune.
Carlos Fitzcarraldo was very wealthy, but the richest rubber baron in Iquitos was probably Julio Arana, whose Anglo-Peruvian Amazon Rubber Company was listed on the London Stock Exchange.
Here, we have Arana's Bank. It's now the Amazon Bistro, which is a French-Belgian restaurant.
That was unusual, right? That one of the rubber barons had his own bank. I mean, they didn't all have their own bank.
No, I believe he's the only one that did have his own bank. And he had it centrally located here on the waterfront area, because this was where the rubber ships came in, carrying the rubber from the outlying areas where it was collected, putting it on the bigger ships to ship back to Europe and to the United States. This is a very busy area with boats coming and going all the time.
Can this all be water?
We're just at the beginning of the rainy season, so the river is still low right now.
So water comes all the way up here?
Water comes all the way up to the bottom of this wall.
Today, more than 100 years after the rubber boom, only a handful of the hundreds of steamboats that once hauled rubber along the Amazon to and from Iquitos still survive. Thankfully, Dr. Richard Bodmer, an Iquitos-based conservationist, has helped preserve some of the last remaining steamboats. He's turned one into a historic boats museum.
This is an Ayapur. Ayapur was built in Hamburg, Germany in 1906. What happened during the rubber boom is that the rubber barons had so much money. Every time this boat would go out for 1 month collecting rubber, it would come back with about $2 million in today's value in its hull.
$2 million. Oh my gosh.
And so that's how lucrative it was. So they were able to buy the top of the line boats, the best boats built.
None of this could have happened without the steamboat, correct?
That's right. None of this. Because the currents of the river are so strong that you couldn't go upriver without the steamboats. And when they first came in the 1850s, everything changed here.
Right.
And for the first time, you could have commercial activities in the Amazon. The steamboats built Iquitos.
Given the time of year, we have to clamber down to where the Ayapua is beached in the mud. But with the rainy season begun and the Amazon just starting its annual rise of more than 30 feet, it won't be long before the area floods and the Ayapua floats again.
This old helm of the Ayapur was many of its original features. Over here we have a whole steam horn. Every time the Ayapur would come back to port, it would let everybody know that it's full of rubber. And so they'd blow the horn. So please, if you'd like to blow the horn.
Give it a go
Give
here?
it a go.
It's a nice sound. Sound of rubber money, huh?
That's a rubber money. So here's a little exhibit on the Ayapur. You can see how they're loading up rubber onto the Ayapur.
Those are the rubber balls?
That's right. They would weigh about 50 kilograms each. And you'd put them in the hull of the boat because that's where you want the weight.
It's much fancier than I expected. It's a working boat, right? I expected it to be a little bit more, I don't know, austere or something.
Yeah, it has been restored a little bit, and this would have been the area actually where they would have kept the wood for the boiler. That's why in the Amazon you find that towns are very evenly spaced. And those towns are evenly spaced because that was a collection point for the timber.
Like getting their gas tanks refilled.
That's right. So this whole room would have been filled with timber in order to make it to the next point.
Can't run out.
That's right. If you run out, that's what you call running out of steam.
Yeah. There you have it.
Yeah.
Lots of working boats ferried rubber to Iquitos and the world beyond. But the really hard work was done by the tappers, who collected the rubber out in the jungle.
Here we can also see the different utensils used by the rubber tappers. For example, how they cut the trees. Here we have a few small rubber balls.
Given that the Amazon's indigenous tribes knew the forest better than anyone, many were recruited as rubber tappers.
There was cases, and especially on the Putumayo River, where atrocities were discovered against the indigenous people. And it was on the Putumayo where you had the rubber baron Arana.
Oh yes, I've heard about him.
And there was a Canadian traveler, Hardenberg, who went down the Putumayo. He discovered that employees of Arana were mistreating indigenous people. And there you can see he's a photograph of indigenous people in shackles when they enslaved them. And he reported whippings and actually burning people alive and killing people.
Did it change anything?
Peruvians investigated, and the British investigated because the company was registered on the British stock market. When they investigated, they had a court case in London. The result of the court case was Julio Rana was found guilty, but he was only fined 1 penny.
Justice not served, then.
Early the next morning, I meet up again with Scott, who's taking me on a short boat trip from Iquitos to the nearby Bora Indian village of San Andres. From Iquitos, we head upriver along the River Mamon, a tiny tributary of the Amazon. Just half an hour or so after leaving Iquitos, we arrive at San Andres.
Here's a small set of drums so we can announce to the village that we are arriving. It's the polite way to do it.
We're here.
They know we're here.
As it turns out, we're not the only visitors today. Benefiting from the proximity of Iquitos, the Bora make a decent living putting on dance shows for tourists who, like us, come to visit them from the big city.
This is mi amiga Holly.
Mucho gusto. Enjoyed the dancing very much. Hello. Mucho gusto.
Holly.
Holly.
This is the chief of the tribe, Rafael.
Raphael?
This is his son, Walter.
Walter? Raphael, I'm interested in the rubber boom history. I'm wondering if you could talk to me about that. Is there any personal stories from Raphael's great-grandfather or something that he might know?
Hay en el lugar donde que está ahí en el Caquetá, hay todavía dice donde que quemaban a los nativos, hay todavía ahí como grasas de ser humano así, y está brillante, y encontrás como un lugar encantado ahí, ese lugar de ahí. Nosotros al ver el tronco, la chiringa, el caucho, siempre nosotros a veces al cortar el tronco, y pensamos en ese momento de cómo sufrían y cómo trabajaban. Algunas personas paleado, algunas personas cortado.
This was Arana's men who did this.
Ah, claro, Ana, claro.
And are there any rubber trees around here?
Hay troncos de chiringa cerca de aquí.
Sí.
Can I look at one? Yeah?
Tenemos uno cerca nomás. Si usted gusta, podemos ir.
Sí,
ver.
¿es posible?
Sí,
ok.
Vamos.
What is rubber tree in the local language?
Amo.
Kuma.
Amo.
Yeah.
En la antigüedad dice la historia que ha sido una mujer que tenía 3 hijos. La historia dice que la mamá se convirtió en un tronco y los niños cuando estaban amarcando a su mamá quedaron arriba. Al transformarse en tronco se quedó arriba y los hijos no podían bajarse hacia la tierra. Entonces lloró la mamá y las lágrimas de la mamá que fue esto. Y por ahí bajaron sus hijos a la tierra. Por eso se dice el árbol que llora, pues esto de acá.
Hard to believe this is what it was all about, all the bloodletting. It was about this quiet white liquid that's dripping over here. Liquid gold.
It really is shocking to think how badly the indigenous people were abused during the short 30-year span of the rubber boom. Many thousands suffered and died. Today, the beautiful old buildings of Iquitos are the rubber barons' most obvious legacy. But for the all too many workers who were enslaved and abused to make the rubber barons rich, the collapse of the rubber boom couldn't come soon enough.
The rubber boom ended in 1912, but the beginning of the end was some 35 years earlier when the British smuggled 70,000 rubber tree seeds out of the region. They took them to Malaysia and started plantations. Now, compared to here, where trees were scattered all over the forest, plantations were easy to manage and had a much bigger yield. So it took a few decades for those trees to mature, but when they did, the market here evaporated. Prices plummeted by 90%, and the Amazonian rubber boom was over. Buildings like the one behind me, never built again.
It's now time for me to move on from Iquitos. For the last part of my Amazon River adventure, I've joined up again with conservationist and historic boat enthusiast Dr. Richard Bodmer for an expedition deep into the remote heart of the jungle, where he's helping to conserve the region's spectacular wildlife. From Iquitos, we're heading 100 miles or so back upriver to the vast Pacaya Samiria National Reserve, where we're joining Richard's research team on the Samiria River. At the mouth of the Samiria River, Richard's historic research vessel, the Clavero, is waiting for us.
Hola. Just hop off, huh?
Get on the Clavero.
Hola, mucho gusto.
Hola.
Holly, nice to meet you. These are my quarters. How about this wallpaper? All right. Heading deep into the National Reserve.
Built in France for the Peruvian Navy back in 1876, the Clavero is incredibly historic. Originally used to explore and defend the country's Amazonian frontier during the rubber boom, today it's said to be the oldest boat still navigating the Amazon. As the largest protected area of seasonally flooded forest anywhere in the Amazon, the Pacaya Samiria National Reserve is a vital refuge for many animal species that depend on this unique habitat. Around 50,000 indigenous people also live in the reserve, allowed to hunt and fish on their traditional lands in return for helping co-manage and preserve the wildlife. One such co-management project Richard is helping with is the conservation of the reserve's turtle population.
We'll check in with the park guard here and arrange things for the release of the baby turtles that have recently hatched from the artificial beach that they have here.
From the guard station, we collect nearly 1,000 baby turtles that are now old enough to be released into the wild. To take them upriver to the designated release spot, we're using the Clavero's small launch.
So this is a good place to release the turtles.
Okay.
So we can start.
Yeah, how do we do it?
Might be easier to lift a whole bucket up.
Okay. Should we do that? No, that's right. Thank
We
you.
have a lot of turtles to release here.
Look at that. Oh, they're excited.
So go ahead and grab a turtle and put it in the water, and it swims away.
There's over 900 of them.
Yes.
Big job.
976, I think.
976. They aren't hunted as adults, are they?
In the past they were, but now for the people to get involved with the turtle program, they can no longer hunt the adults and they can no longer take the eggs. If the local people are taking care of the environment, are taking care of the endangered species, of the forest, then they're allowed to sell some of these baby turtles in the pet market. And that gives them an economic incentive to do all that conservation. It's been very successful for the local people and particularly successful for these river turtles.
Oh, okay.
So in 8 years' time, these turtles are going to start to reproduce, and then you're going to have larger numbers here.
It's nice to have a good news environmental story coming out of the Amazon. I mean, this is 976 little bits of potential swimming off into their future.
That's right. Each one baptized by Holly.
Yeah.
It's the last morning of my trip through the Peruvian Amazon, and I wake up to a spectacular sight. Swimming all around the boat are lots of the rare and unique pink dolphins, which I only got tantalizing glimpses of earlier in my trip.
The full jungle experience has really come to life. You can hear the dolphins rising and blowing, and the birds are just everywhere. It's truly amazing.
It's time to leave the Clavero behind to start my long return journey home. But Richard says we've got one last chance to see some more pink dolphins back at the mouth of the Samiria River. There's often a lot of fish at the confluence, so it's a favorite place for the dolphins to feed. As it turns out, we're really in luck.
Oh, there's another two.
Oh yeah, look at that. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful.
Oh, look at that strange behavior. You see that tail, how it's moving? That's very rare, very rare. That's dolphins mating. And we only really see it at the mouth here during this season. And you can see how they're just moving around, the tail's coming up and they're rolling their bodies over there. That's really interesting, really rare to see.
What an unbelievable way to end my trip. Mating pink dolphins. Now there's something I wasn't expecting to see.
My journey down the Amazon has been kind of epic. First making it all the way to Iquitos, then experiencing the jungle and all its crazy biodiversity and majesty. And I've loved exploring the human drama, last century's rubber boom, and today's interface of people and the environment. The Amazon is truly a unique place, and I feel lucky to have gotten even a glimpse of it.